Hi there, Stampin' Peace friends. Welcome. It is Friday, June 16th, and it's been quite the week. A little bit on the long side, but that's okay. That means I was busy and productive. I hope you've had a great week. You're probably looking forward to the weekend like I am. I have a friend coming later this afternoon to stay the weekend. She's from Cincinnati, so it'll be nice to catch up with Melinda. All week long, we have been featuring the Places in the Heart stamp set. On Monday, I showed you how you can make a very simple card and then just make a slight change. Add some color around the image with a blending brush, or use a sponge dauber to add a little color to the main image. So that was from Monday. That video and cutting dimensions, everything for those 3 cards is up on stampinpiece.com. On Wednesday, we made 2 more cards, and the 2 things we talked about doing in this class were to color just parts of your image. Going the wrong direction here. Color just parts of your image to make, to sort of spotlight them or highlight them. The other thing we talked about was mixing and matching DSPs. These happen to be from the same DSP pack, Inked Botanicals, but you can even mix and match DSPs from various packs. And don't forget that right now, during the month of June only, Stampin' Up! Has 13 of its designer series papers on sale for 15% off. So if you love DSP as much as I do, you love playing with paper, the sale's made for you and me. And before we get into making our 2 cards for today, and I will mention there's a technique in today's demonstration. We'll be talking about the 2 different kinds of black ink that Stampin' Up! Sells, and we'll be working with some vellum as well. But I want to give a final reminder that tomorrow, June 17th, is the last day to register for my Countryside in Suite class to go. In that class, you'll make 8 cards, 2 each of these 4 designs. And you can purchase the class with the entire Countryside in Suite. That's the stamp set dies, DSP, and the embossing folder. You can purchase option 2, which is card supplies with the DSP, or you can purchase the tutorial only. I will mention too that with that class, and what did I just do with it? Oh, here it is. With that class, for the sentiments and the flowers to finish off the cards, I used Lasting Joy. So I'm offering this as an add-on to that Countryside in class to go. You can certainly use whatever sentiments and floral stamps you have at home, or if you'd like to purchase this one, you can add it to option 1 or option 2 with that class and get it for the catalog price with no additional shipping charge. All right, so let's get started. I'm excited to show you this technique and to give you some information about our black inks and how to use them. So I'm going to flip my camera around now, and while I'm doing that, please share this live video so that others can join us for today's demonstration. Okay, once again, we're using the featured stamp set of the week, Places in the Heart. And I'm also using the beautiful Inked Botanicals DSP that I used on Wednesday's Facebook Live. We'll also be using Vellum cardstock. Now, Stampin' Up! Sells its Vellum as cardstock, so it's a little heavier than a lot of Vellums, but it gives the same results, and it's just a little bit sturdier, a little bit easier to work with, less chance of it crinkling or something just when you're holding it or whatever. So today we're actually going to be stamping right onto the Vellum. I'm going to put this under so you can see it a little better. And what I want to show you is that for this technique, you can use both Memento Tuxedo Black ink. Okay, this is my go-to ink. You see me use it all the time. That's my go-to black ink. You can also use StazOn black ink. This is more permanent. However, both of these will work on the Vellum cardstock. If you have regular Vellum, I would try it out first, but I have tried both. And both work very well with the Vellum cardstock. There is a drying period that you need to go through, and I will show you that. Keep in mind that if you are working with the StazOn, you will want to have the StazOn cleaner. This is what StazOn will do to your stamps. But if you use this cleaner going over it, it will take that black stain away. Okay. The other thing before we stamp on our Vellum is I do want to tell you, a lot of times I'm asked, what coloring tools do we use for what? What markers go with what black ink pads? Here's the answer. If you are using StazOn, which is a truly permanent ink, you want to use our Stampin' Right markers. Okay, the round ones. You want to use the Stampin' Right markers. The reason for that is the Stampin' Right markers are water-based. And when you're combining a stamped image with coloring with a marker, you want to consider that opposites attract. You want the opposites. So the permanent ink is not water-based, but this marker is. Okay. Then with the Memento, you want to use the Stampin' Blends. Now you don't always have to use this ink with Stampin' Blends. Sometimes I don't, just like in Wednesday's Facebook Live, I stamped with Gray Granite, which is one of our classic ink pads, and I still colored, but it worked out fine. The thing you worry about using the other ink pads is it may smear at times if you're going over that coloring, that stamped area too much with your blends. Typically it doesn't happen for me. That's a rare instance. But the Memento ink is the recommended ink for the Stampin' Blends. Okay? So that'll help you out a little bit. And if you have to make a note of that somewhere, put in a Post-it note, buy your markers and buy your Stampin' Blends, or write onto your ink pads. By all means, do what you have to do to help yourself out. Okay, now I want to show you that I can stamp with both of these. So the first thing I'm going to do is stamp with my Memento ink. That black that's already on there is from the StazOn, and it's dry on there, so it's not going to affect me using the Memento here. And I'm going to stamp this. And can you see how glossy it is? It looks wet. Can you see that? That means it is still wet. If it looks slick and glossy, it is wet. So you don't want to touch it. And you can just naturally let these air dry, but that can take a little bit of time on the vellum. So I will show you how I use my heat tool to speed up that drying time. So remember, the one on the left, I used Memento. I'm gonna put it right here. And the image on the right, I'm using the Stays On. And the Stays On seems to grab that a little bit more. I don't use my Stays On very often, so I had to really re-ink it before I started making my cards. I will also mention that with both of these inks, I store these upside down. The reason being, like our classic ink pads, when you close them, the inking surface, the stamping surface is facing down, so that draws the ink to the stamping surface. So that's why I flip these over, because these are made differently, but I still want that ink going to the stamping surface when I store them, okay? Now, as you can see, the Memento stays quite a bit wet. It's more water-based. The Stays On is just wet in the outlines, that darkest area. Here's what you can do. If you don't want to sit around waiting for these to dry, simply use your heat tool to dry them. I'm going to start with the one on the left just because it has more, it needs more drying time. So this is not embossing. I'm simply using the heat tool to dry my ink. Most often when we're using our heat tool, it's to do some embossing and to melt that pretty embossing powder. And I'm going to tilt it different ways so I can see if there are still wet, glossy areas, because if there are, I want to continue to apply the heat so it's completely dry. So now if I look at it in every direction, it looks like it's all dry. I'm going to run my finger across it. No smearing at all. That's with the Memento. Okay, I'm going to run my other finger, my other hand across this one, completely dry. Okay, so this works with both types of black ink. All right, both types of black ink. Cecilia, I had my heat tool all the way up. On the Stampin' Up! Heat tool, there are two settings, a 1 and a 2. I used, and I typically do use number 2. I almost never use 1, and I'm not sure why. Okay. All right, let's continue. We're going to make some cards, and I'm going to use this pre-cut piece of vellum and ink up my stamp once again with the Stays On. By the way, if you leave your Stays On pad open for a long period of time, it will dry out. It will dry out. Our classic ink pads, we really don't have that problem. But because this is permanent, just like our Stampin' blends, you want to keep them closed up if they're not being used. Cecilia, the way to keep your cardstock or whatever you're using the heat tool on from curling, it's always going to go a little bit. Now on this vellum cardstock, it doesn't seem to curl too much, But if it does curl, what I do is take my heat to the back and it starts kind of curling it the other direction, and it pretty much smooths it out. Okay, so let me dry this one now, and then we're going to add some color. Hi there, Betty. Hi, Marion, and all you stampers. I'm glad you're with me today. Again, you want to move your heat tool around and turn your vellum at different angles so you can see if you have dried all of the ink, and it looks like I have. So now I'm going to color with Stampin' Blends, but instead of coloring on the front, I'm going to color on the back side. And I'm going to color this sweet baby first. You can never have too many onesies with babies, can you? Now I'm using, I'm using Calypso Coral for the baby's onesie. Keep in mind that when you're coloring on the vellum, it's going to show you lighter shades when you're coloring on the back side. See the difference? It's not a huge difference, but there is a difference. If you want it darker, just go over the whole thing with the dark shade of Calypso Coral or whatever color you're using. Notice it looks wet for a bit. You'll have to give it some time to dry. Then I'm going to color Mama's clothing, and let me just flip it this way. I'm going to start with the dark shade of Daffodil Delight. I chose these colors because they are colors that are in the Inked Botanicals DSP. If you have a hard time choosing colors, look at the packaging on the back side of the DSP, and that will help you. Now I am using DSP on my 2 cards today, so I did want to use inks that match that DSP. But even if I weren't using the DSP, I can look at the packaging of my DSP and get some good color combinations. I love that Stampin' Up! Does that for us, helps us out with those. Not only does it tell us what colors are in the DSP, but it also just is a great way to put together some color combinations of your own. So that's what I have so far. Again, if you want that yellow a little brighter, I would color all of it with the dark Daffodil Delight. Now let's add some hair to Mama and Baby. I am using the Natural Tones Stampin' Blends. This one happens to be number 600. And I'm just putting a little bit of sparse hair on the baby. Not much, just a little. I'm interested to see if Andrea and John's baby has a lot of hair or a little. Neither of mine had a whole lot. They both had hair, but not a whole lot. But I'm not sure about John when he was a baby. Time will tell. And speaking of time will tell, the countdown is on. 22 days till the due date. 22 days. And this darker shade is number 200. The natural tones are great for hair and skin tones in your coloring. All right, I'm very happy with that, and I'm going to leave it like that. I'm going to just set it to the side here. It's still a little wet in certain areas, but while it's drying, I can be putting together my card base. Today I made my card bases the same size, 5.5 by 4 1/4, but I cut the bases a little bit differently. Okay, I scored it 5.5 and cut it 4 1/4 to get my two card bases. I've got 5 1/4 inch by 4 inch white for the inside. Oh, and I should have done this. Well, I'm going to stamp in here, but I'll stamp in a moment. I am using this piece of the Inked Botanicals DSP, and I'm going to cut it at 4 inches. Set this aside. I'm not using that 2-inch strip. But then I'm going to cut this at, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to cut the 1/2 inch off the bottom. Let me get this. 1/2 inch off the bottom. And then I'm going to cut, oops, 1/4 inch off the bottom. And I'll show you in a moment how I'm going to use those. This piece measures 5 1/4 by 4 inches, and this will be my DSP layer on the front of my card. I'm going to center this right in the middle of my card front. This measures, let me think, 4.5 by 3 1/4, I believe. Yes, 4.5 by 3 1/4. Okay, and my vellum that I started with is 4 1/4 by 3. 4 1/4 by 3. This piece of white, now I could put this on just like that, and that's perfectly fine. It's a beautiful card, right? I want to spotlight that image, that colored image, just a little bit more. So I cut a piece of white cardstock that measures 2 1/4 inches by 3 1/2. And I am going to adhere it to my stamped and colored image. And I love that I can use my Stampin' Seal and it does not show through to the front of the vellum cardstock. That's why I like our vellum cardstock a little bit more than just a standard vellum. It's just a little bit thicker and more forgiving in some ways. And I'm gonna center this on my vellum. So now it makes that image pop a little bit more, but I'm leaving a border of the vellum cardstock because I want to draw attention to the fact that I stamped and colored on the vellum. And now I'm going to put this on the center of my card front. We're going to do a little something to the inside of our card, and then it will be complete. Isn't that pretty? And also, because I'm put those layers up on dimensionals, that also draws some more attention to the vellum cardstock. I'll put just a little bit more right here. Yeah. Okay, now we have these two pieces of DSP. The one is 1/2 inch by 4 inch and one is a 1/4 inch by 4 inch. And remember, I just cut those from the bottom, come on, from the bottom of that 4 by 6 piece of cardstock that I started with. I'm gonna place this one right here. I'm leaving just a tiny bit of the white cardstock showing. And now there are two things I can do with this 1/4 inch. I can put it right here, or I can put it at the top. So it's just a little bit different way to add an element of surprise or interest to the inside of your card. So what do you think? Bottom? I'm going to go bottom on this one because on my sample I went at the top. So there's two options of how you can use those two strips. Either one I think looks great. It's certainly a matter of preference, but I think they both make a nice impact on the cards. Now on this one, remember we have that great sentiment in here. When a child is born, so is a mother. However, I wanted to make some baby cards that I could use for moms that are giving birth to a second, third, fourth child or more. So that's why I chose to use So Happy For You. This card would now work not just for first-time moms, but moms who give birth to more children. All right. So, oh, and here I'll give you an example too. This is this image I stamped with the Memento. So you see with the Memento, the lines are a little heavier, whereas with the Stays On ink, they're a little lighter. All right, let me put this where it's safe because I want to give that card away today. And we're going to make one more. And I've got something fun to show you on the second card. I'm going to show you a real simple way to use a scrap of ribbon as an embellishment, and I'm going to show you how you can quickly and easily turn any card into a gift card holder. Okay, I'm going to quickly dry this with my heat tool on the high setting. And again, if your cardstock or whatever you're applying the heat tool to starts to curl, you can just go on the back side of it and put a little heat on, and that kind of straightens it out, smooths it out, flattens it out, whatever you want to say. Okay, so now let's do a little coloring. I'm going to start with my Daffodil Delight and color the bow on Mama's hat. And then I'm going to give her dress some color. I'm just going over the areas of the image that look like they have shading. So it's real easy to know where to put that darker color. I already follow the, you know, what's already there in the image. Some of those I'm going to go over a second time just so they're a little heavier. And then I'm going to fill in with the light shade of Daffodil Delight. And next I will use Lost Lagoon for the shorts and shirt of this little guy. And again, you can use any colors you want. I just chose colors to complement the DSP I wanted to use on my cards. Is that the light? Yes, it is. I want to go over his shorts and some accents on his shirt with the dark again. And finally, I'm going to give this guy some hair. I'm using number 600 from the Natural Tones set of Stampin' blends. And I'm combining it with number 200, also from the Stampin' blends Natural Tones collection. Now, of course, if you wanted to fill in the complete image on either of these, by all means, go right ahead. It's completely up to you. But this week we did talk a bit about it's okay to just color parts of our image, kind of spotlight or highlight different parts. Okay, let's let that completely, I think it's dry, but we'll just set it aside for now. I'm going to cut this cardstock at 4 inches by 5 1/4. I know you're expecting me to use this on the inside of your card, but surprise, I'm not going to. So this is 5 1/4 by 4 inches, and then this 2 inch by 6 inch strip, I'm cutting down to 2 by 4. 2 inches by 4 inches. And I could have cut these pieces ahead of time, but in an instance like this with the DSP, I like to, especially the 6x6, I like to show you how to cut it for minimal waste. There's the front of my card. Okay, this square of vellum was cut to 3 1/4 by 3 1/4. I'm going to put this piece of basic white that measures 3 1/4 by 3 1/4 behind the vellum, again to kind of accent or draw more attention to the stamped image. Just trying to center it on there. Let's see how I did. No, not quite. Trying to center the white cardstock on that vellum square. There, that's better. And then I've cut a piece of Lost Lagoon that measures 3.5 by 3.5. Oh, need some more. Oops. Well, I can use these. These are the minis, but that's okay. Oops. Oh, I did that backwards. My bad. I want this layer flat on the card. Getting ahead of myself. I want this layer, the Lost Lagoon layer, flat on my card. And then I'll put the dimensionals behind my layers. So it'll be like that. Before I do that though, I want to show you, does anybody remember on Wednesday evening, I gave you an idea for using up your DSP strips, and I just had a small one, maybe 2.5 inches, gently folded it in half, and then I placed it behind the layers. You can do the same thing with ribbon scraps. So here's just a tiny piece, okay? And on one end, I'm going to put a glue dot and then fold the other end over on top of it. So now I have my little loop, right? And then I'm just going to put that little loop behind the cardstock. And now I'm ready to adhere this. I'm basically centering this piece left to right and top to bottom. I want to have it right in the middle of my card front. And then now I will add dimensionals to the back of my layers. So once again, because I am putting the layers on dimensionals, it again draws some nice attention to the vellum that I use to stamp and color with. It's not quite straight. Do you guys do that too? Oh, it's not quite straight. It's close, but not quite. A lot of times I think people getting my cards probably wouldn't even notice, but I notice. So I like to fix it. Okay, now we have this piece of 2" by 4" DSP left. And this is a super easy way to turn any card into a gift card holder. Of course, I still need my white on the inside of the card. And then this, I'm going to add a very narrow line of glue to 3 sides. Essentially, it's going to be left, right, and bottom. Keep it that narrow line of glue very close to the edges. And the edge with no glue is to be at top. And now this has become a pocket that I can put a gift card in. So Maybe I want to enclose a gift card for mom to buy diapers, or a DoorDash gift card. The family's busy and she's got the new baby and she's tired. She can order a meal for the family. Now, if you decide you just want to send the card, but don't want to enclose a gift card, it's no problem. Nobody's going to even notice that that's a pocket unless you stick something in it, okay? So it kind of is twofold there. If you want to make it a little shorter, by all means you could, but that was an easy way to add. That was an easy way to use a piece of the DSP and add it, add it to your card. And I'm going to put this tinsel gem right on that little ribbon loop. So I added just a touch of bling. All right, so let me pull these cards back in. These are the two cards. We focused on learning the difference between StazOn ink and Memento ink, right? We said if you use StazOn, make sure you have the StazOn cleaner. You will need this to take the StazOn ink off your stamp, okay? It won't come off with just soap and water, or even just cold water like we use a lot of times to clean our stamps when we're using the regular classic ink pads. I also quickly told you that typically when we are using or coloring with our Stampin' Write markers, we're going to stamp with StazOn. And I also said that typically when we're coloring with our Stampin' blends, we want to stamp the image with Memento, okay? Memento black is my go-to. If I'm just stamping a sentiment in black or quickly stamp an image with black, I typically go this route. I don't use my StazOn quite as often. Not nearly as often, I should say, okay? And then we practiced, or I demonstrated how to stamp on your vellum, dry it quickly using your heat tool, and then color on the reverse side of it, okay? Just gives it a little bit of a neater appearance if you're coloring on the back side of it. Also, one of the tips, if you're coloring on the back side, you flip it over and the color's a little lighter than you would like it to be, just flip it over to the back again and color it away with that Stampin' blend again. Alrighty? And I showed you two different ways to add some interest to the inside of your cards. And I also showed you how you can quickly add a small piece of DSP. This is also great for crafts. If you're doing lots of gift card holders, it's a great way to use up some of your scraps of DSP. Alrighty. Okay, who would like to win a card? If you would like to have your name entered into the drawing to possibly, receive one of these cards, please type in the comments now, Vellum cardstock, Vellum cardstock. And I don't think I told you at the beginning, but this is how the Vellum cardstock comes. It's in sheets of 8.5 by 11, same as our 8.5 by 11 cardstock. And there are 20 sheets in there. Okay, and this is in the annual catalog, of course. All right, the Vellum cardstock. So you learned a technique for using that Vellum cardstock today. I hope you enjoyed today's demonstration, perhaps learned something new or picked up a tip that will be helpful to you. And I hope you'll join me again. Next time I will see you live is Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay, Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And I'm going to say goodbye for now because I have a few last minute things I want to do in my house before my company comes. I wish you a great weekend. Have fun. Be safe to all the dads and those who take on roles of the dad. Happy Father's Day. And enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Bye-bye.